We also mentioned in our conversation with Mehdi Hassan the indictments that have been released against Julian Assange, and they're charging him with espionage. It is the first time someone has been charged with espionage for publishing information that was leaked to them. We had far too many, well, not far too many. We had just, none of them should have happened. Espionage charges or threatening to espionage charges of leakers during the Obama administration. Trump has nearly reached the same number of people in his 2 years as opposed to Obama's 8. But this is the first time we're seeing this and the theory of the case is built upon, at least partly, the legal theory is that you cannot entice someone to leak stuff to you. And that enticement includes inviting people, even if you're just putting out a general call for it. They're not even claiming that Assange approached Chelsea Manning and said, hey, go in there and get some stuff. They're saying that this solicitation was just on its website, saying that you should, we invite you to send us information that you are trying to leak. And that is a regular practice by news outlets. Just go and check on some of your national security reporters what's on their Twitter feed.
Yeah, they always have in their bio the encrypted communications.
Hit me on Signal. If you have something to tell me, Signal app.
U.S. authorities outlined 18 additional charges against Assange, 17 of which fall under the U.S. Espionage Act. All of the charges arose from the sharing of classified intelligence documents and diplomatic cables that Chelsea Manning passed to WikiLeaks for publication. Faces a maximum of 175 years. I mean, that's even secondary. What the legal theory of the case is what's problematic. Carrie DeSalle, a staff attorney at the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University, wrote on Twitter, the question isn't whether Assange is a journalist, but whether the government's legal theory threatens freedom of the press. This is important because I understand why people may not like Julian Assange and may not like WikiLeaks. But this is really important. Julian Assange is completely secondary to this, frankly. The government argues that Assange violated the Espionage Act by soliciting, obtaining, and then publishing classified information. She goes on to say that's exactly what good national security investigative people... The solicitation charges are based on open calls for information that WikiLeaks posted on its website. I mean, we could pull up all sorts of organizations where there are open calls for this. New Yorker, The Times, The Post, The Intercept. Prosecutors allege in the indictment that Assange and WikiLeaks, quote, repeatedly encouraged sources with access to classified information to steal it. That encouragement was literally writing on a website. How to send tips to ProPublica. Have you seen something that troubles you or think should be a story? Do you have a tip about something we should be investigating? Do you have documents or other materials that we should see? We want to hear from you. That's ProPublica. I mean, this is really problematic. Posting on its website, quote, most wanted list for leaks organized by country and saying the documents must be, quote, likely to have political, diplomatic, ethical, or historical impact on release. How is that different from what? Do you think there's something we should see? Is it important to people? On ProPublica. This is dangerous stuff. And here is something else that's important, I think, to note. And I think this is, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but certainly if you look at what they did, it makes sense. According to the Washington Post, Matt Miller, a spokesman for the Justice Department, under Eric Holder, said that when Holder was Attorney General, they were weighing the WikiLeaks case, this case specifically, 2010. Officials in that administration debated intensely whether Assange could be charged for publishing classified information, but ultimately decided that doing so would be, quote, dangerous and untenable. Miller said there was, quote, no way to apply the legal theories in this case to Julian Assange in a way that they could not also be applied to a reporter for the Washington Post or other outlet. And even if prosecutors felt the case was righteous, officials were concerned that it would not survive a First Amendment challenge in court. The concerns were really twofold. One was whether it was the right thing to do and whether it could set a dangerous precedent. Then there was also a concern that these charges could be thrown out in court. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that part of the calculation is we're going to intimidate people. That we are going to, at a time where we're about to have the Attorney General dig in to all this stuff that's going on, we're going to make it clear that if any of this gets out, the Attorney General decides to publish a classified document that says X and refuses to classify another document that says, wait, not X. We don't want anybody to tell the public that there's a document over there that says not X. This is a very hairy situation. And I don't want to be, I think there's a lot of value in declassifying intelligence material, but I do not trust AG Barr to decide which ones we're going to see and which ones we're not. Here is Daniel Ellsburg, the person who leaked the Pentagon Papers on Democracy Now! I think this must have been yesterday, or talking about, maybe this morning, talking about these charges.
Yesterday is a day that will live in the history of journalism, of law in this country, and of civil liberties in this country, because it was a direct attack on the First Amendment, an unprecedented one. There hasn't actually been such a significant attack on the freedom of the press, the First Amendment, which is the bedrock of our republic, really, our form of government, since my case in 1971, 48 years ago. But this is, I was indicted as a source, and I warned newsmen then that that would not be the last indictment of a source if I were convicted. Well, I wasn't convicted. The charges were dropped on governmental misconduct, and it was another 10 years before anybody else faced that charge under the Espionage Act again, Samuel Loring Morrison. And it was not until President Obama that 9 cases were brought, as I'd been warning for so long. But my warning really was that it wasn't going to stop there. Almost inevitably, there would be a stronger attack directly on the foundations of journalism, against editors, publishers, and journalists themselves. And we've now seen that as of yesterday. That's a new front in President Trump's war on the free press, which he regards as the enemy of the people.
Every time there's a loss of rights in a in really in any society, it always starts with the weakest, the least popular, whether it's group or individual. Understand that. That's the way that this goes. You roll this stuff. That's the way this stuff is rolled out. And the reason is not just because it's strategic. It's also because that's where they think they can get away with it first. There are plenty of people right now that the government could look to go after, to bring these same charges. Plenty of people. Like over at The Intercept, from Reality Winner, anybody who's getting any type of leaks, plenty of people. They go after Assange because, for the most part, he is really, really disliked by a broad mix of Americans. So suck it up. Keep an eye on the larger principle rather than focusing on who this one individual is, because it will not stop with him. It will not stop with him. And it has far greater implications than just Julian Assange.